Does the time of day affect your ability to mark? Can you assess fairly, for instance, when you're hungry? And if the first exam you mark is of really poor quality, will the comparison to the average students raise the overall average class mark? Or if the first student you mark is brilliant, will the average students look even worse in comparison? What biases affect our marking, and how do we eliminate them? Well, firstly, timing matters. Did you know that anesthesiologists make 3 times more mistakes in surgeries beginning at 3 p.m. than they do at 8 a.m.? Or that endoscopists are significantly less likely to detect cancerous growths in the afternoons than in the morning? Or in education, for instance, in a Danish study of 2 million standardized tests, it was revealed that students randomly assigned to the afternoon scored significantly lower than students who took the test in the morning. A difference that was equivalent to 2 weeks of missing school. That's incredible. And these are just 3 of countless cases that I could list. But in short, timing matters, and when you choose to mark may influence how you mark. But timing isn't the only issue. Have you heard about the halo horn effect, which happens when assessors let their general impressions of students influence their scores? There's also the contrast effect, which is the over or under evaluation as a result of the quality of the prior answers from students. These are all cases that can affect how reliable your grading really is. And reliability is essential in grading if you wish your students' marks to accurately reflect their achievement of the learning goals themselves. For tests to be reliable, only students who achieve the learning goals at the minimum acceptable level should pass. Fraud and plagiarism should be monitored, and group work should be accounted for. Questions and answers should be clear and unambiguous, and the influence of chance should be omitted. So how do we achieve reliable grading? Well, first, compare points given per question. Grade a few and see how it went before continuing. Mark anonymously. This reduces the halo horn effect. You can do anonymous marking using student numbers as opposed to student names. Also, choose your marking time wisely and rescore those first papers, because usually you're more strict with the first few and then tone it down when you see the same mistakes being made over and over again. So either rescore the first samples and compare them again, or decide if you need to adjust the grading because of a mistake in the question, or if something went wrong in the classroom. Next, have 2 assessors per question. This irons out biases. 2 assessors solve that one problem of reliability, but they open up a second issue, and that is inter-rater reliability. And because of this, we also advise you to use an answer model or rubric. We'll be looking at these 2 items in more detail, starting with answer models. These are models that explain to you how you will score the answers of your students, and they come in 3 flavors. The addition answer, where you add 1 point or more for every correct step or correct keyword. A subtraction answer model, where you deduct 1 point for every spelling error, for instance. Or a combination, which is a little bit more common. So what should be included in the model answer? Well, first, the right answer. And you can do this either as a short description or as a list of keywords. Next, you consider which answers are correct or partially correct and how you will deal with them. Do you, for instance, subtract? You also need to indicate the number of points per question, sub-question, or keyword given. And finally, what is the process for potential right answers that are not yet in the model answer? What other issues should your graders be aware of? For instance, do you minus any points for any other reason? All of these instructions need to be included in your answer key or model answer. So here are some common issues with answer keys and how to solve them. The first is continuation errors, which occur when your questions build on each other. For instance, students are asked to calculate 8 times 2 equals n in question 1, and then they use their answer in question 2 for a new calculation. This means that if the students make a mistake in question 1, they automatically fail question 2, even if they get the calculation right for that question. So how do we solve this? Well, simple. Either you only subtract once for the mistake and you mark the calculation, or you don't couple your questions together unless absolutely necessary. How do you grade if a student gets the right answer using an incorrect approach? Should the student get the point? Well, make your policy explicit to both graders and the students. If the question has multiple right answers, for instance, you may wish to write clearer instructions to narrow down the number and ambiguity. But of course, there are also times when students have the correct answers that you had not previously considered that are not part of the answer key. Well, if this happens, don't subtract. Revise the answer key for future use. And what do you do if you notice that multiple students have the same mistake? In cases like this, it might be possible that your model answer is actually wrong, or that something happened during the teaching in class. We suggest you investigate further. Lastly, do spelling and grammar mistakes actually matter? That depends on the purpose of the assignment and the learning goals. Your POC, for instance, is a document that can be used in other professional contexts. So for us, spelling and grammar matter. But in physics exams, is the same really true? Probably not. So here's an example of how to phrase an answer key. Answer keys and rubrics aren't just useful for reliability, they're an important element in transparency. We strongly encourage you to show students the parts of an answer key related to how you will mark and whether you subtract points ahead of time. This adds to the transparency of your course and your grading. The same is true for rubrics. Assessment should not be like a poker game where anything can happen. Students need to be informed about the learning objectives that are assessed and the importance of the learning objectives, how their grades will be established, and of course, the assessment itself. For instance, the points per question, admissible aids, cutoff score, and available time. Thank you for your time.